How's it going, traders? Welcome back to the Flow Zone channel. Today, I thought we'd do something a little bit different. How many of you watching this video right now have experienced tilt? How many of you have blown up accounts over and over and over again? It's like hitting your head on a brick wall. You probably even know how to trade and you know your setups, but you can't help but go on tilt and blow all your hard work to smithereens. This is known as self-sabotage. So in today's video, I thought we'd do a lesson so you can understand what self-sabotage is, where it comes from, what its signs are, and how you can start putting in practices today to start fixing it. So let's get straight into the lesson. So the key takeaways for today's lesson will be understanding self-sabotage and tilt. Why do we self-sabotage? What those signs of self-sabotage are, and how do we start fixing them? So what is self-sabotage? Self-sabotaging behavior refers to actions or thoughts and patterns that interfere with your long-term goal and overall well-being. And these thoughts and patterns can both be conscious and unconscious. So you may very well be aware that you're doing them at the time, but it's also possible that you're completely unaware that you're doing and making these patterns. Experiences of self-sabotaging behavior can occur with work goals, personal goals, and relationships. In trading, this is seen with tilt and blow-up events and the pattern that surrounds them. So an example of this might be that you are in a trade, you are triggered in that trade. Maybe you realize you're triggered. Maybe you are unaware that you've been triggered and you fail to stop out. And instead of accepting the loss, you start adding into that loser. That loss starts to compound more and more and more. And you furiously go on tilt at that point with all rules and all self-control going out the window. And you start to hammer in more and more positions until eventually there's nothing left and you have lost your account. That is an all too common theme of self-sabotage. I've seen numerous students build up their accounts to very, very healthy amounts, and then it only takes 5, 10, 15 minutes for them to completely blow that after months of hard work, and that pattern will repeat again and again and again until they get this self-sabotage under control. So what are the signs and symptoms of self-sabotage then? Well, the first one would be procrastination. All right, procrastination, the inability to fulfill a task or to carry out a task. Examples of that can be just simple things like not turning up to work on time, not journaling when you should be journaling, anything where you're just trying to avoid finishing or taking on a task. An all too common other symptom is negative self-talk. Negative self-talk is like an absolute virus. It's something we should never ever do, both in trading and outside of trading. How many times have you cursed yourself and called yourself a bad name? Your brain will take that name on and eventually it will start to react to it worse and worse. And this causes self-doubt and low self-esteem. Another sign or symptom is self-isolation. How many times have you had it where you've had a bad trading day and then you want to avoid seeing anyone at all? You start locking yourself away in a room. You don't want to talk to your partner or friends about what you're experiencing. This is another sign of early self-sabotage starting to take over your life. Another one which people fail to see, and it's very common in trading, is perfectionism. That is the expectation of too much. If you are asking too much of yourself, if you think that you should be trading with 100% record of winning trades, if you think every day needs to be green, if you think you're going to meet your target, your financial target every single day, you are asking for perfection. Perfection doesn't exist in the markets and it doesn't exist in life. So if you are asking too much of yourself, you're likely to self-sabotage that. Similar to self-isolation is avoidance of feedback or reflection or even self-reflection. So if you fail to take feedback on, if you don't want to hear someone else's thought process, if you can't seek advice, if you can't look yourself in the mirror and look at what you've done wrong, and instead you just want to point at everyone else, This is also then a feeling of self-sabotage. And finally is the feeling of regret, right? That's the last thing that happens in self-sabotage. Once we've all but damaged everything that we have, especially when it comes to trading, the next feeling is of regret. All too common, okay? You make these big errors after this huge self-sabotage moment, and then you're left with that feeling of regret. That is a symptom or a sign of self-sabotage. Now, when we talk about these emotions like regret, like fear, like greed, all of these emotions I'm going to go over in detail later, because we can really dig into why they exist and where we really need to be resonating if we're going to be fluid and in flow state in life and in trading. So now that we understand what self-sabotage is and what some of its signs and symptoms are, let's look at some of the causes of self-sabotage. Now, these 5 causes are all very, very closely linked together, so there will be some overlap here. The first one is fear of success. Now, you might be listening to this and think, what are you talking about? I don't have fear of success. I want to be really successful, and I have self-sabotage moments all the time. All right. Well, fear of success can be both conscious and unconscious. If you are not prepared to have that success, if you have overhanging feelings of low self-esteem, low self-worth, all these things, then it's possible your unconscious mind, your monkey brain will take over and prevent you from having that success that you so much desire. So fear of success can definitely get in the way, and that also comes close to perfectionism. Following on from that is low self-esteem. Now, if you have low self-esteem, this can be caused by so many factors in your life, probably outside of trading as much as inside of trading. And if you're unable or unwilling to look at those factors and try and fix them, then chances are that you're going to sit in a bad frequency, a low frequency where you feel pain, okay? And when you feel like that and you have low self-esteem, you lack self-worth and you can have feelings of desperation. You want to get out this heavy feeling that you're in, but you're unable to do it. So you can do things in trading like gamble too much, right? You have low self-esteem. The desire is to be rich because you feel really poor. And that doesn't just mean financially, that can be poor in your life. And you put too much risk on the table, you blow up, and then you're back down to bottom again. So it's the same thing over and over again. The next thing that causes self-sabotage is fear of the unknown. Now, this is a very big and very broad topic. But if you catch yourself saying things like, what happens if, all these what happen if statements, then you are having fear of the unknown. What happens if this happens? What happens if I take the trade and it doesn't work out, even though I know I should be taking that trade right now? These fear of the unknowns cause self-sabotage, because what then happens is when you should be executing that trade because you should understand your process and you do not execute that trade because you have fear of the unknown, the trade goes without you, and then you are either kicking and shouting it, screaming at yourself that you're not in it, having bad self-talk, causing low self-esteem, and the whole process repeats, or you have fear of missing out, you jump into that trade late, you get punished for jumping into that trade late, and again, the process continues. You either take a loss and then you're annoyed with yourself, or you don't take the loss and you blow up, all right? So it's the same feeling over and over again. And much of these feelings will come back to having a lack of self-worth. This is something you need to fix outside of trading as well as inside of trading. You need to understand that you are allowed to be happy. As human beings on this planet, we should be happy. We should be seeking joy, all right? We should be frequently happy in our lives. We should be resonating at high frequencies. These are all things that we should do every single day as human beings. If you have low self-worth, if you look down upon yourself, if you don't think you're worthy of having this dream, ideal job, ideal life that you should be striving for and desire, then you will never, ever, ever achieve it. So these are all things we can look at outside of life. I personally have been on this journey over the last 5 years to fix many of these issues. Now, a lot of my issues, I'm going to be very honest with you, stem from childhood. They were things I needed to go back and look at childhood. Maybe the issues with parents, issues with relationships, with friends, all these things we can go back and look at. And you need to have some ability to have some self-reflection and start fixing some of these pain points, right? Start letting go of some of these pain points and try and find some tranquility and balance in your life. Moving on to the emotion pyramid. I like to use this a lot, and I use it a lot in reference to myself each and every day to see where I am feeling in this pyramid. So first of all, we need to think, how do these feelings show? When we vibrate at a low frequency, we can get stuck in a feeling of shame, guilt, fear, and anger. We just talked about some of the causes of that and how we get there. And breaking this cycle will become harder and harder as the trauma starts to build and we start to repeat the same patterns and continue the self-sabotage if we do not fix the root causes. So again, giving you an example of that. Let's say you have something going on outside of your life, all right? You're not in a great frame of mind to be trading. We talk about that checklist most mornings when we're on stream. Have you slept enough? Have you eaten? Have you drunk enough? Do you feel well enough? Have you had an argument, or is there something else going on in your life? Because if that's the case, you shouldn't be trading on the screens right now. You're gonna find it harder and harder to be completely focused and dedicated to the market. So you need to fix those external issues. If you don't fix those issues, you're not even giving yourself a chance. And then when you come to the screens, if you're unable to stick to your process, right, and you do something which you shouldn't, then you're instantly gonna have some of these emotions, right? You're going to have the fear of missing out. You're having that greed factor, and then you take the wrong trade and you're angry with yourself, and then you feel guilty that you've done it, and before you know it, you feel shame and you've blown everything up, and you rinse and repeat this cycle of that low frequency. Now, if you look to the right-hand side of these low frequencies, what do they equate to? They equate to suffering, all right? It's a feeling of suffering, and a feeling of suffering is not where you want to be. We've all been there. We've all done it. It's okay if occasionally you dip down into that feeling of suffering. There are factors that happen in our lives all the time, which will mean we will have those feelings of suffering, but we don't want to be down there for too long. We want to bounce back, climb up that ladder on the left, and start feeling pride and courage and neutrality and a willingness to participate, acceptance of life, acceptance of the risk we're about to put on the trade, a reason for being there. We want to feel love, we want to feel joy, we want to feel peaceful, and the ultimate goal is for enlightenment, and that's a conversation for another day. But this little chart here is something that you can use every single day when you come to the screens, during your trading day, and when you get off the screens. And if you're feeling those low frequencies, you need to try and figure out why you're feeling them, and you need to start attacking the reasons that you feel like that. Start fixing all this process in your life to give yourself a chance to move up that scale towards willingness, acceptance, reason, love, and joy. So we're talking about, how do we fix it? All right, how do we fix self-sabotage? The first thing I would encourage you to do is to have self-reflection and start journaling. All right, and this can be in all parts of your life. I encourage all my students, everyone who's done the course will already know this. When we journal, we don't just journal the result of the trade. If you are journaling the result of the trade, you're actually getting quite limited information, right? If you're saying, hey, I put this trade on and it worked out and I made $100, great. And that trade was like a flow zone long, let's say, off the flow zone, dip long, for example. That's a lack of information there, because what you really need to know is, how did you feel coming to the charts that day? How did you feel when you put that trade on? Did you feel confident? Did you feel comfortable with it? How did you feel when that trade started to work? And how did you feel if that trade didn't work? Because then we can tackle the real issues here. Because if you've got fear of putting that trade on, it's something you need to look at. If you're getting greedy and adding too much size into that trade, it's something you want to look at. If you don't know when to put the trade on at all, again, that's something you need to look at. And we need to look at our emotions, which are attached to our trade and attached to it every single day. It will also help you if you look back in your journal and you think, hey, I had a massive red day there, an outlier red day, I shouldn't have happened. What happened that week in the run up to it? Oh, I had an argument with a friend. Something happened in the external world of my life, and that probably threw me off. All right. So journaling is really, really, really important. The second way we can start fixing self-sabotage is with mindfulness. Now, mindfulness is a hot topic. It's a hot word, but lots of people don't really know what it means. So what is mindfulness? It's actually just the ability to be conscious and aware. And that can mean everything. Aware of your surroundings, aware of your self state, of how you're feeling, of how your body's feeling, of how your mind's feeling, of what's going on. If you can live in the moment and be mindful of what's going on around you, you are going to prevent self-sabotage. Because if you are mindful that yesterday you didn't feel too good, or today you've woken up in a bit of a bad mood, or you haven't slept well, or just maybe you're feeling a bit off kilt, then you shouldn't be trading, should you? We need to be trading when we're feeling 100%, all right? So being mindful can really help. Understanding when you're in a bad mood, when you're not. These are all things. We're human beings, all right? We're not perfect. We're going to have days when we're not feeling 100%. We trade for freedom. And you don't need to be at that desk every single day. If you're not feeling great that day, get off the screens. Go and find some balance. Go for a walk. Do something that makes you feel good. I end every single stream on a Friday reminding you to go and find balance at the weekend. It's so, so important you find balance in your life. Another way we can fix sabotage is by creating smart targets. So what's a smart target? It's a small, measurable, achievable, recordable target, okay? So small. And this can be, if it's in trading, it might be small financial goals. It might be a small win, as in I'm going to learn one key setup and stick to that setup. And then you're able to measure that setup by your trading journal. And it's achievable. You're not trying to make $100,000 a day if you just started trading. Maybe starting, you're just trying to take 1 or 2 good trades a day, and that's it, for small amounts and learning the process. It's achievable and it's recordable. Again, you're going to journal this target, all right? Find balance in and outside of work. I talk about this all the time. If you are on the screens all the time in your life, then you are not going to find happiness. We are not born and we are not on this planet to sit on a screen 24/7, okay? You need to be letting your feet hit the ground. Go and do simple things, all right? I have a dog. I walk my dog 3 or 4 times a day. I have a wife. I have friends. There's a whole world out there. Go and find a hobby outside of trading. Do things that make you feel good, things that fill your cup. You know what those are. It can be absolutely anything, but make sure you're doing them. Find balance in your life. Equally, if you want to be a professional trader and you are not finding balance on the screens, then you need to dedicate some time to be on the screens, to learn the setups, to understand the process. It takes 10,000 hours to become an expert in anything. So you're going to have to give that time, all right, over a number of years. Practice gratitude and compassion, all right? And this isn't just with everyone around you. This is also with yourself. Remember we said earlier, negative self-talk, it has such a detrimental effect to your mental well-being. All right, so if you can start practicing gratitude every single day, what are the simple things you're thankful for? Maybe it's your health, your family, your friends, the world, the nature, where you live. It can be so many things. If you can give this abundance of feeling of gratitude and joy, you're already starting off the day in a really, really good place. And be compassionate with yourself and others. You never know what people have going on in their lives at any one time. Try and find some compassion, and find compassion for yourself. I will keep saying it over and over again. We are only human. You will make mistakes. That's what we do as human beings. Understand it's okay to make that mistake. Be kind to yourself and then just move on. And finally, a way to fix self-sabotage and do it in a really good and timely method is to start journaling and doing all these things with a friend or a team, so you can work through these processes together. All right, that's why we do all these things in FlowZone. All right, that's why I created the course. That's why we have a private community, because all my students are supporting each other. I have no doubt so many of them have direct emails with each other or on phone calls, just like I did with a handful of the guys in the room to start with. It's really important that you're able to share your experiences. It will allow you to be heard and understood, and that makes a massive difference in life. I want to end with one thought, and this is something I say fairly regularly. In trading, preparing for failure is training to be a winner. You are going to need to be prepared to fail in trading. That might mean taking a singular loss. It might mean taking a loss on the day, a red day. It might mean weeks, months, years, countless blow-ups, all these things. But if you're actually prepared for that failure and to take that loss is going to be manageable. And that's the key thing, being prepared for failure. So what does that mean? That means you understand your risk in getting into that trade, your risk in taking this on as a potential career. You accept that risk and you will accept that loss when it happens, right? So if you're willing to risk $150 and you're looking to make $300, then you need to be willing to risk that $150, right? Not $500, not $1,000, not $10,000, not all your accounts, the $150 only, okay? Because what happens is people are not able to accept that risk of $150, and instead of taking that loss, they add to the lose, and before you know it, they've lost $500 and $1,000, right? So just accept the loss. Be prepared for failure. Not every single trade is going to win. Create rules, and I call these rules of engagement. You would have seen, if you've watched me on stream, there are plenty of times I don't take a trade, even when I say, hey, this is setting up, but it doesn't fit my criteria. I have very strict rules to take a trade. That's what allows me to have a large win rate. I have a high success rate because I have very rigid rules. It means I miss many, many trades, but I know that the trades I'm going to hit are probably 76% of the time. So I have rules of engagement, rules to get in the trade, rules of when to get out of the trade, rules of how many trades I'm going to take a day, rules of max loss. Make sure you have these rules, and then you need to stick to those rules and stick to your edge and process. So if you've back tested your system, you've back tested your strategy, you'd forward tested your strategy, you should know your potential win rate. And that will give you confidence that you can take the trade when it sets up and you can just let it work out. And finally, record your triggers. It's something we go over in the course a lot. I know my triggers and I know when they're starting to show. If I've taken 2 or 3 break-even stops in a row, I'm very, very close then to being on trigger and going on tilt. So I then need to either walk away and have a breather, walk away for the day, or size down. If I start to see myself tapping my feet, fidgeting too much in my screens, my voice might be starting to raise. This is a problem. This means I'm one step closer to tilt and self-sabotage. That at that point is time to shut down the screens, walk away, come back and survive another day. So I know today was a little bit of a different video, but I really wanted to give you some context into why you might be losing in this game of trading beyond actually executing the charts themselves. Understanding psychology is so important. To become a really advanced trader, what you really need to be doing is mastering yourself. Master your own psychology, master your own discipline. If you can do that, your success rate is going to skyrocket. And actually, at the end of the day, there's no ceiling above your head. You can then trade as much as you want, whenever you want, wherever you want in the world. It is the best job ever if you can learn to master yourself. I'll be back on stream on Monday. I look forward to seeing you then. Take care.